Okay, it's live. First thing, Eid Mubarak to everyone out there. In India, we are celebrating it today, and yesterday we were celebrating it in the UAE. And yesterday we actually had a fantastic live stream with the co-founder of USDT and the chairman of Animoca Brands. We spoke a lot about stables in terms of how programmable money is going to take over the world in a few months. And today we have a dear friend, Ravi, who I'm so happy that he's here. I think Sarah pointed out that last we met in Bangkok during the DEF CON, and here we meet virtually. Ravi, how are you doing? How is life?
All good, Vaibhav. Fantastic meeting you and Sarah again after a while. As we discussed, life is going through, the market is going through a roller coaster and hence the implications at times. But this is a fascinating time. Really glad to see what we are, experiencing every other day in terms of the changes, in terms of the innovation, the speed of innovation, and how it is bringing fresh, I would say, the way of thinking new, right? So I think this is very exciting time for all of us to experience and keep building.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Uh, the way the world is moving, a lot of people say it is similar to industrial revolution, it is similar to when computers came in and all of that. I absolutely disagree. This is nothing like that we have ever seen before. It is, we are not ready for what's going to happen. I personally feel this. But we are today we'll be talking about how to run native AI organizations, right? The thing is, in the way we are moving ahead, even giants and mainstream AI guys like Open AI is also now sending out their engineers, charging $4 million, and maybe 6 months, 8 months, they will have their entire AI workflow ready. Facebook just laid off 7,000 people. I was reading what Jack Dorsey said, that you know business is great, everything is good, but we still need to fire a bunch of people. Mohammed Alabar, the guy who actually made Burj Khalifa, founder of Imar and founder of Noon. If you're familiar with the UAE ecosystem,
Yeah.
uh, Noon is the souk or the Amazon of the UAE, and they have actually said business is going great, no problem, but we are still going to have 30% of the workforce laid off. And this 30% is not going to be the delivery guys. It is going to be the back end guys who are actually running the system, because AI is going to uh, make life very interesting. And I'm glad we have Ravi today. First thing first, Ravi, is it possible to actually see a one person, $1 billion company?
I'm glad that you're asking this question, Weber. And in fact, we all were thinking like 12 months back that this might take another couple of years for us to reach to that point. But I would like to share that if you go on to Lean AI leaderboard.com, you would there are already companies who are mentioning that they have crossed that, right? So one person, one company, I think at the leaderboard it says Medvi. but I'm sure that there are more companies who are into that league. Important is that, when we are talking about 1% unicorn, that primary idea is how can one person have that set of tools or agents that can actually perform all the components that are required by an organization. And I think that is a reality, at least what it says onto the lean AI. But we are not that far when people were dreaming of maybe it would take 2 years or more for 1% unicorn. I see that there are certain companies who are onto that threshold or would be passing very, very quickly. One of them is being mentioned on this lean AI dashboard.
You
So,
know,
what do you think
I
the biggest friction point might be for from shifting from the AI assisted world into becoming the truly AI native in core operations? Will that take a lot of time, or is it easy for them to transit from that to this?
I think, eventually it is going to be happening, but the early days is how do people change their mindset, right? I think it is people not necessarily learning about it, but leaving it. And what I mean by that
Okay.
is that if I say that I'm learning AI, I may be watching YouTube video, I may be reading a blog post and things like that, but eventually if we start from learning to living, and maybe go on to nano banana, create an image, maybe use a tool to create a video, or maybe start using those AI agents in terms of getting our productivity, connecting those email to our cloud, calendar to our cloud, and let AI manage. I think that is what I mean by living. So getting
Mhm.
the mindset shift from not just learning to living, and then thinking in terms of how are we going to be using that into our day-to-day life. This is where I believe, in last few months I had a privilege in terms of working with the AI native team. And what exactly AI native means is not just by word, but actually trying that out. And our ideology is that when we are thinking of AI native, we are talking about thinking in terms of creating an OS for us, not an application, right? So not just thinking in terms of a chatbot as one AI tool, and then I'm chatting with it in order to get my research done or maybe write a beautiful email or things like that, but more of an OS level integration. So more multiple tools can come together, they can coordinate, they can have a shared data, they can have a shared memory, and it can connect my systems in order to get end-to-end things done.
the way we are working, so of course, the direction that we are moving on is to more agentic AI, to more open claw kind of stuff. But then let's understand, for somebody who perhaps is a small business owner, right?
Hmm.
Should he actually go to VPS like Hostinger or the others, or Oracle Cloud, or should he invest in a Mac Mini? Or like me, what I have done, I have a M3 Max MacBook Pro. So I said, okay, let me use it in this and run my open claw. What do you think is the best way for a small company to move ahead?
I think for an individual, for or otherwise for a small company, it certainly is coming at a cost, right? At the moment, even though we are finding that we can experiment very, very easily with the tools, but there is a cost associated. So coming back to your question, what I feel is that if we are trying to use it for more productive work, there is a different approach where we can use best of the tool, at least in terms of getting this hosted onto either EC2 or Harbinger or the existing emergent kind of platform. But if you are trying to do it more extensively and we wanted to save that cost, there can be local installation as well. Now, there are tools and there are techniques that are easily available where with few clicks you can have your open claw, and now it is the world of Hermes. You can get those agents set up in a few steps into your local machines. They are being, I would say, more operationally economical in terms of getting that set it onto your machines if you don't want it to go onto the other platform. But even installing on those platform and thinking that whether that $5 to $10 monthly subscription is that enough for your ROI in terms of what you are getting out of it, I think that is the deciding factor. Imagine that if it is saving the entire call center for a dentist, he may not worry in terms of paying that $10 for getting that instance up onto a cloud service, right? And that $10 can save him maybe a 1%, 2% of effort. The call center, or let's say the recording for taking an appointment, can run 24/7. It can be more responsive for the customer to get the basic questions answered and things like that, right? So depending upon an ROI, you can decide. Students I've seen many a times are more open in terms of getting that installed locally on their devices. Zero cost, no API cost, no installation cost, no server cost. But if you are going towards a small business, I would say, depending upon the ROI that they feel, they should be able to use more stable environments.
Okay, now when you say stable environments here, I would request you not to gatekeep anything. You can name it, and so that people listening to us can actually understand. Because unfortunately, right now there is so much of overdose of information
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
internet, and when I say overdose, I mean like without exaggeration. So
yeah.
let me ask you this: out of 10, how much do you rate Olama and its modules?
I would say, if you wanted to work with the open source model, I'm happy in terms of using those Olama based model. In fact, I'm one of the beneficiary of using Gemma 4, and it works great for my simple use case. I would rate 8 out of 10 in terms of all the things that is required for my use case. So I think if you are asking me personally, I would rate it very high, but it may not work for all the use cases. Open source model using Olama may not give you the best latency. So you need to be ensuring what model that you are using and how are going to be useful for your use case. But I'm super happy. I would rather 8 out of 10 for Olama based Gemma model that I've used.
Okay. And do you believe in OpenClaw more, or Hermes, or maybe something like Annie Mocha Mines? Because I'm using OpenClaw and Annie Mocha Mines, and I've kind of loved the way these two are, especially Annie Mocha Mines, because it's very easy to set up. uh, a few clicks and it's set up, and the beauty is that it has a persistent memory. Here you have to download the persistent skill and stuff, but here it like off the bat there.
Yeah, I think if you are asking one over the other, I would say always there are pros and cons and there are trade-offs, right? So when OpenClock came in few months back, there was no competition, and we were trying to experiment of how I would say autonomous agent can help you across different aspects. Now, everybody in SF in Bay Area is talking about Hermes. I see potential benefit in terms of the recursive learning ability that Hermes brought in terms of the newer innovation versus the guardrails that are now being provided. So I think this is a continuous cycle. It is difficult to say that at this point in time you have one over the other. My personal favorite is still in terms of experimenting with OpenClaw until I get sold out for Hermes and the other ones. But personally, what I feel is, Weber, I would rather say that we have to start thinking in terms of that there is no stable playbook. Rather, this is a very, very fast moving, innovative space. And we have to think in terms of how are we creating those kind of playbook that work for us, for the business that we are running, for the type of work that we are doing. And I think this is going to be one of the important element where leaders who are actually winning this next decade, they would be defining their own playbooks with the type of tool that works for them. And there is no dirt in terms of even creating your own custom tools, right? So what we have seen with the open claw, and then you see that everybody else have created their own claw version, whether it is in the web3 ecosystem where near and everybody started talking about their own claw version, and people have started forking and creating their own claw version. I think that is the kind of innovation, that is the kind of playbook that everybody would start playing around. So in my view, I think at the moment doing a comparison could be good when we are trying to use it from a perspective of a use case. But I would rather say that take one, take any one of them, customize it to the best of your ability from a perspective of what context we are providing, what data we are connecting to it, what kind of sources that it is being able to pull. And I think it would be able to give you the best of the ability. The key difference is the underlying model, right? If you are able to pay it for the API cost, go for the more premium models. If you wanted to do moderate job, the typical kind of activities that may not necessarily need the frontier models, potentially it can work with the lesser model, and that way you can save your cost. So I would rather defend it from a perspective of that what actually you're trying to achieve and how much you wanted to spend.
And since you are using Gemma 4 and like like Anthropic has now taken over, right? Everybody's talking about Claude, like like how people speak about the new iPhones, or how people are speaking about meme tokens back in the day. Claude is on everybody's thing.
Yeah.
When you compare the both, do you think that though the models on Olama, like Quinn 30B coder and stuff, is it at par Claude, or you think Claude is way ahead, and what we are doing with open source is just experimenting?
I would say there is and fair amount of difference between the open source model and the premium frontier model, right? I think it may not be a fair comparison to talk about a frontier model versus the open source model. Maybe we can compare, let's say, the kind of output that we can get from Haiku or from Sonnet, which are not the frontier model from from the Anthropic side, versus the open source model. But today morning only I published a post where I was talking about, there is not sizable difference when we are talking about different models, at least the frontier model. So I've been using very extensively Opus 4.7, Gemini, OpenAI model, and I don't find significant difference between this frontier model, at least that I'm using day to day. What rather I started figuring it out is that instead of model differentiation, which has now become more like, I would say, a common denominator and commoditized, the harnessing is the next key feature, right? How are we able to better harness this model in order to get the things done the way I want it, right? And I think this is where, when you started talking about OpenClaw and Hermes, this is the harnessing level, and this harness is gonna be the key when I'm talking about how do I control this genie and get the best out of this genie the way I want, right? So we do not go back into a situation where we got the Jurassic Park and the T-Rex are coming out, and we need to have those electric fences in order to get the things in control, right? And I think this is where the harnessing comes in, where we have the guardrails, where we have the right context, where we provide the limited set of information, and those things are done appropriately in the harnessing that you are doing with the type of interface that you want, and not just depending totally onto the models.
Great. So now, to understand this properly, uh, back in the day, they always said that the horse is not important, but the jockey is. In this case, the jockey being us, and the horse being the model that we are talking about. And do you think this is the right example for the audience to understand?
Yeah, I think I would say now the jockey is you and your agent.
Mind.
So yeah, you and your agent become the jockey, right? How are you driving it, and how are you going to be utilizing the power of your horse?
Right. And I'm sure there are a lot of questions that perhaps I don't even know, or I'm not even asking the right questions in today's world. Uh, what mindset do you think one should have while building an AI native organization?
Okay, that's an excellent question, Vibha, and I think what I would rather try to envision is that when we are talking about the amount of changes that we are seeing in the world with the superpower sitting besides us in the form of an AI, I think we are going to be seeing something that we cannot compare with the other transformation that we have seen, whether we try to compare with the steam engines or with the electricity or with the industrial revolution. I think this is much bigger. And personally, in my capacity, what I feel is that something that we have seen in last 50, 60 years of changes, evolution, innovation, we would experiment something of that nature in a very small period of, let's say, 5 to 10 years. That is the level of transformation that we are going to be experiencing, and we have already seen that, right? I think we just spoke about OpenClaw, and now we are talking about Hermes, and we have seen the progression of what has happened like 3 years back, roughly, when the first model from OpenAI came out, versus to where we stand today, right? The amount of change, the amount of innovation, the speed of acceleration that we have seen, right? Speed of innovation that we have seen. So something what we are experiencing across many decades is now being condensed into year, and this is where the organization have to also adjust of how are they going to be absorbing this kind of innovation, this kind of speed of adoption. And this is where the world is going to be experiencing of who are the leaders and who are going to be the followers and ladders, right? And I think this is the way where most of the organization have started taking at least baby steps, but the one who are actually practicing and inculcating this into their daily work are the ones who are able to I would say able to encash the maximum power of AI.
Ravi, I think what you said is a bit general. I don't know if you're trying to take the safe route with the answers, but I request you not to be as brutal as
Okay.
possible, right? And can you please tell me that, see, what you're saying is the great. Somewhere, to be honest, I think we all know this, right? Uh, I want you to tell us that what are we really missing that you see from an insider, and when you look outside, you're like, stupid fellow types, like what do you see missing? I want you to be brutally honest here, so that, see, because this is a wake up call to all of us, right? I was doing a live stream with Gaurav from TD5, and I said that we are going to see a large scale, uh, you know, uh, people not having jobs. He said, I don't know how to be, help anybody prepare for this, right? He was honest there. Um, and our viewers also appreciate that, because at the end of the day, we need to know, boss, what are we, uh, I think we are against our own selves in one way or the other, because I've met a lot of people who have said this AI is okay, but I'm going to use my brain because I have experience, and AI is biased and all that jazz. I think that's a whole lot of bullshit. AI is biased, but if you give the right commands today to AI will actually be able to guide you in a far more better manner than anywhere in the world. So coming back to my same question again, what do you think we need to be prepared, and how should we do it? Like precisely, like break this down, because believe it or not, there is an like how you said, the Jurassic Park is actually in the wild west. There is T-Rex running somewhere, right? People are telling us, hey, run, there is T-Rex. We're like, let us see the T-Rex, and then we will figure out which direction to run.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Okay, I think I hear you, Bebo, and I think let me share some of the things that we have been practicing, we have been experimenting, and we have been trying to optimize on that, right? So I think first of all, when
Sir,
I was
this is
talking
this is
about,
what I'm saying. Give me the gold, because Modi sir said don't buy gold, but he didn't say don't give gold. So please give us your gold.
all right, I would try, and you can decide whether this is gold or even better. Yeah, so I think let me share first of all the ideology in terms of how do we think, what is the mindset that is actually helping us. So the previous analogy when I was talking about an application versus an OS, there is a big difference in terms of how do we use the tool. I give you an example. If I'm talking about using Photoshop, where there are AI features being integrated, right? So I still, as a human user, I still go make those 5 clicks, and then there is a filter which is added based upon AI capability that can help me improve that particular image, right? That is more on an application kind of an analogy, versus if I use Nano Banana, where I'm giving a prompt and things are being done, right? So when I'm talking about an operating system way, I'm thinking in terms of how can I maybe create my morning routine where my Gmail, my calendar, my note taker, all those components, all those tools are connected, and they can leverage the benefit of using the data underneath each of them. So imagine if I've got 5 emails and 3 of them required my attention, can the agent actually write the replies for 3 of them and wait for my reply for my review, so so that I can click a button in the morning and those replies can go out. But at the same time, if one of that email is actually asking for a 30-minute meeting, can also this agent interact with my calendar, find out a 30-minute slot, and make a invite with the person? And that is the integrated experience. Now imagine this can even be further expanded, where let's say this particular conversation between you and me is ending up with some kind of an action item that is getting recorded, and that requires some kind of an action, whether it is sending a particular file from my Google Drive. Can that also add into my to-do list and start interacting with my Google Drive in order to encache the existing authentication that we have done and pull that file and send it to this particular email address, right? That is the kind of an operating system behavior that we are talking here, where we are not thinking of silo application, but can this be a connected context? Can this be a connected data source that can help me not use AI as assistant, but start using AI as delegation? And this is just one simple example, right, which I'm talking from an individual capacity. From an organization perspective, you can imagine there are tons of other systems that may come in play. And a system where my CRM is connected, a system where my note taker has all the call recording with my partner, with my customers. It can read through all the note takers. It can understand that 3 out of those 4 calls required some kind of an NDA or an MOU document to be sent. One of them need a pricing sheet. It can go into my CRM, get the pricing data appropriately generated, and then it is waiting for my review, and then click of a button, all the actions being taken. At certain point in time, it can be autonomous. So this is the crux where I'm talking about not just using AI for assistant, but can we use AI for delegation? Now, coming to the second part, how can we do that? How an organization should be thinking? So there are different principles that we have been working, and those principles we have been trying to optimize. How can they be effectively done, right? So one of the key things that we have started thinking is not planning in terms of quarter, not planning even in terms of months, but can we start planning in terms of weeks or days, and then executing them in those shorter sprint. It may not 100% be accurate, but at the same time, this is a fail fast kind of an approach, where if we are experimenting it with the 1 or 2 days kind of a cycle, this gives us certain options that we can try and find it out, that of those 3 options, maybe 2 are not optimal, and we can just focus on one of those and then double down on those on that particular option in order to get the best result, right? So this is one of the principle, where instead of planning for a longer duration, can we start planning maybe in a days, not even in months or quarters, right? The second important thing that is also has been working for us is how can we reduce the coordination time between human to human. And this is where AI can be very, very handy, and it can do excellent job. So we really don't need to have those many meetings now, where we are letting people to find out a common time. And I can imagine how long it take for 5 people to find out a common time across different calendar, right? How can we reduce
And
those
even
kind of...
different time zones for that matter.
Exactly. So imagine how can we reduce that kind of a coordination effort between human to human, and can we do this more async with the kind of tools that we have now, right? So a product manager don't really have to wait for those kind of a coordinated call. Can they create a mock-up? Can they create those kind of pitches? Then can those pitch be also circulated async, and then those responses can be collected automatically in a standard format that can help in terms of moving faster. The amount of quality documentation that can be generated, those kind of prototyping that can be done, they can really reduce the amount of coordination that is required, right? That is one of the other principle potentially that we have been using, and it has been working excellent for us in terms of creating more human to AI coordination or collaboration versus human to human coordination, right? So that's another interesting principle, I would rather say, that we have been practicing, and it has been generating value for us. The third one is dependency elimination. And this is where we are talking about, again, how can one person do end-to-end thing and remove dependencies of the other team members into the workflow. I take a simple example. For one of my project, I wanted to try and generate the outreach emails. Now, while generating an outreach email, there is a dependency of the SME for that particular region in order to give me more context. Whether have we been talking to this person ABC, so that we do not unnecessarily reach out to the same person if we are already in touch. That kind of a dependency slowed down the overall process. Now, the way we have eliminated is, instead of depending on a person, can I access his inbox? Can I access the CRM? And those system gives me whether there is an email ID present for this person. If that email ID is not present, that defines us that we haven't spoken to this person. And for that particular domain name, if we haven't spoken to anybody in that organization, I am free to do a reach out. Now that eliminates a critical loop of waiting for someone to maybe find out 30 minutes from his calendar, get alongside me, and then clear up the outreach email list. Right. So that is very simple example. There are more complex example where can we eliminate those kind of dependencies and move things faster. So that's pretty interesting. I would say one of the principles that we have been trying to do, which is eliminating the dependencies. And this is the AI first system approach, where we are not waiting for an individual, but try to see how can we have connected system that can help us move faster. Additionally, I think not bombarding with too many principles, but the other one that is coming to my mind is, can we ship on a daily basis? And this shipment has to be more impactful, even though it is not complete. But the thinking in terms of a daily incremental shipment can actually help us move much more faster, and it generates a compounding effect. If we wait for something to be developed in a week's time, where you would get the design done, you would review it, you would give it to the engineer builds it, then you give it to the QA team test it, and then send it back to the developer saying that we found out 3 bugs, and then they fix it again goes back, right? That cycle entirely, first of all, required too much of coordination, too much of planning. It delays a lot of steps in between. Instead of that, we have been thinking in terms of, can a person own end to end and ship incrementally, right? So this is where the industry is also moving, where we are seeing more people now being called as AI builders, instead of they being called as, let's say, a product manager, or they are being called as a sales executive. I think the world is moving where can everybody become an AI builder and own a piece of their activities, right? So from an engineering perspective, the engineer itself is now understanding the requirement. They are doing the design themselves, they are doing the development and testing, and then talking to the customer whether this particular requirement is coming as per expectation or not. And this simplify a lot of process in between, and avoid those kind of coordination efforts, as well as move things much more faster. And this kind of the point that I was talking about, building it on an incremental basis on a daily level, actually help in terms of getting those compounding effect, and helps in terms of shipping faster, reducing the overhead of reworking. I'm sure there are a bunch of things that I shared across, but these are some of the principles.
I would like
You
to know
look.
your thoughts more about what would happen if an AI native organization handles the liability when there's no human to fire. For example, if an AI agent makes a critical operation error, so resulting in some kind of a property damage or a massive security breach, who do you think we have to go and blame?
Very interesting question. I think we will see how much of tsunami that it would bring in. But on a serious note, I would say that there is a cost of innovation, and this is the cost of innovation, right? So we have to think from a perspective that if we are trying to innovate, there are always going to be those early day errors, and we have seen that even in the past technology, right? When we have entered into the online world, there have been people who were having one common password, and then people try to forget those password, or people can actually predict what is the password, and then drain your money out and things like that. Similarly, those things have been moving out. When we are moving into the crypto world, we have been seeing those things where the cost of innovation has been at the forefront. There have been so many hacks in the bridges, right? Nobody to blame, but that is the cost of innovation, where we are still innovating, not the systems have been foolproof. And if you're talking about those scenarios, precisely, I think in the early days there has to be some ownership about who own this agent, and the person who is a legal entity or an organization sitting behind that agent legally become responsible for that wrongdoing or for whatever things that have gone wrong, right? So technically it's the legal entity that should be blamed for, but I would rather categorize into the early days of cost of innovation.
Interesting.
Um, you know, this is, I think, perhaps the first tech revolution that perhaps is not come from the pornography industry, because pornography industry has been the pioneer in multiple aspects. Like, for example, the first payment gateway was used there. uh, the first pay-per-view was used there. um, the VR technology was heavily used there. I don't see anywhere else being used as heavily as there. But I don't, I think also pornography websites were the first one to accept crypto as a payment. But do have you seen any AI agentic stuff already been tried and tested in the pornography industry, or this is just taken off on its own? Like, is this like the first revolution that is not associated with the pornography industry?
Good point, Weber, but I do not have an answer there. Honestly, I'm not
Ravi,
sure.
Ravi, Ravi staying very safe there.
Yeah. I think it has to be that way. But honestly, the analogy that you're trying to do is true for not just pornography. I would rather say that people who are thinking with the antisocial activity, they are the first one who adopt the early, or rather they are the early adopter of the new technology. This has been always the case, whether you are talking about people who wanted to do some kind of trafficking, whether people who wanted to do some kind of attacks and ransom people. So they have been always thinking in terms of what are the newer innovations that they can use and be one step ahead of the regulator, of the compliance authority, of the police authorities, and that way they can easily play things around and run away. I think when you're talking about the adult industry, I think they have been also trying to make the best use of the technology. But I would say that from an agent perspective, if you are talking in general, the use cases still remains valid. Whether can that give you personalization, can that give you easy way of making payments, can that give you some kind of anonymity so that your profile, your identity is not revealed. And I think there are solutions that have been built for different reasons, but they can certainly be utilized into this adult industry as well.
And for lot of your friends who are building their own agents, I'm sure a lot of them come to you. I think even I'll be coming to you saying that Ravi bhai, tell me, I'm facing this challenge. What is the common problem do you see them facing? Like, where are they going wrong?
I think, first of all, to me, when we are talking about agents, we are talking about the kind of an automation that can help us make decision, right? So one of the things that I typically see with the with many of my friends who are coming, they are still thinking in terms of, can this agent be utilized to do a very small part of just the automation, but not necessarily utilizing the full capability of that particular agent. And that's where, in fact, I will not call that as agent, but I would rather call that as a chatbot, right? So this is where I've been seeing that how can we start leveraging the full potential of those agents in order to get things done the way we want it. The agent are capable in terms of doing much more than just the chatbot. They can certainly help in terms of ingesting more resources, working with several tools, generate more better outcome that we wanted to let them do it, right? So more of delegation thing. That is what I feel that when I talk to my friends, I just try to emphasize that go try this particular agentic flow and then experience what all things can be done, right? So we not just letting this agent to maybe help write a social post for me, but can it start scanning LinkedIn and identify that these are 10 posts that I should rather be engaging because they are of my interest, generate the responses for those 10 posts and then send it, right? I think that kind of a utilization of the tool and the technology that is at our disposable is rather more interesting. And this is what I try to debate many a times. I am also on the learning seat and see how other people are using it and what I can learn from them and maybe utilize it for my more efficiency. But yeah, I think typically we are not, first of all, restricting our thought in terms of what can be done, and second, not just restricting it to one set of tool, but maybe experimenting the innovations that are available to us across different tools.
Just
Sorry, you
adding
have a
to that,
question?
I just wanted to know that what is the which single most overrated AI tool do you think the companies are wasting money on right now?
That's a good one.
Wow, that's a tricky one too. Okay. I would put it this way. I would rather say that I've tried multiple tools, but the way I've started looking at it, where I get the maximum ROI, is the one which can provide me more connected experience, right? So initially I had subscription for ChatGPT, I had subscription for Gen AI, Gen Spark AI, and many other similar tools. But I've zeroed down and now more effectively using Cloud. Uh, for the reason that I can now have more connectors there, I can have easy way of connecting multiple MCPs. The coworker actually reads through my files on my laptop, provides me much smoother experience in terms of whether it is creating a PPT or maybe storing a file on my Google Drive and so on. So just to turn around your question, rather I would say, what is the tool that I find best ROI? And I would say Claude at the moment.
And for somebody who perhaps cannot afford $20 or $200 for Claude Cowork, which open source do you think is as good as that? First thing,
Hmm.
on which plan are you on?
Uh,
I'm assuming you're on the $200 plan or on the $20 plan,
uh,
and then you're being true to your roots of the banyas and the like sabse sasta par sabse acha.
no, I think I'm in middle, so I'm on $100 max plan for Claude. But then I think this is helping me to get the things done. And I'm in fact using multiple plans across different other tools, so that gives me a balancing act of getting the best out of each of the model as and when needed. But then I think we are back in terms of comparing the frontier models versus the open source model. And I would say that there are capabilities that can be delivered with the open source model if we are talking about very standard capabilities and the use cases that we wanted to do, and we are really not worried in terms of a small latency here and there and maybe the performance not up to the mark. So I think if we are okay with that, my personal favorite is Gemma 4. I've been using and I find it pretty okay. Then there is WAN 2.2 for maybe in case if you wanted to do more of the video creation and content related to video. That's another good model. Otherwise, I've used Quen as well, but I think to keep it short, Gemma 4 is one of my personal favorite when it comes to open source.
Sorry, do you have a question?
I just wanted to know one thing from you. It's just a true or false question that if the tech professionals, if they refuse to learn how to prompt or manage AI agents, then will they be completely unemployable in 2028?
I think
If
we
it is only
already
true
are.
Because
and false,
there's too many people who think that they know how to prompt, but the prompts are really not going well, and then they blame the AI agent saying that they're not able to understand anything.
so true, so true. Yeah, I think short answer, if it is just a true and false, it's a true thing. Yeah, you have to do more. You have to be actually one has to actually do more. Try to understand the systems, and in fact, this is where working with this system would help us to know how the system behaves, to what prompt, what kind of responses are being generated. Can we really rely on those responses or not? I think that would only come when we are interacting with the system. So just saying that I've written a prompt and it has not returned, that means the system is not working, is a wrong thinking. It has to be getting acquainted with the systems and trying to work with it. I would say a very simple example where, let's say, if you try saying go on abc.com and find out if there are job openings, right? The AI can fool you by saying, okay, I've gone to abc.com/career and there are no job openings.
True.
But if you technically go and see onto abc.com, instead of careers, it might have abc.com/jobs. But the way it can hallucinate is may not necessarily be doing the thing in the first time the way you are expecting it to do. Then you have to probe it. Have you actually tried this? What is the actual hyperlink that you have gone it? And give me a snippet from that particular page. I think these are kind of validation that you would learn over a period of time by interacting, whether the model is giving you the response in all true sense, or whether this is getting lost and hallucinated in between. And this can only come as we start interacting, as we start working alongside. And this can be true for my, let's say, a colleague as well, right? Until I am working with him, I don't know whether the way he operates, the kind of responses that I'm getting is up to the mark the way I want it. But then eventually over a period of time, we understand the way we collaborate, and that way we can get the maximum output. So I think short answer, true, but at the same time, we have to put that efforts in order to understand how things operate.
You mentioned
True.
about hallucination. How often are AI agents hallucinating, and what can we do about this? Because we are giving them access to our wallets, we are giving them access to our emails, we are giving them access to a lot of sensitive information. Uh, what can we do to make sure that it stays on track?
Yeah, I think again it goes back in terms of how are we going to be working alongside with the agents, and then ensuring that the way the outcomes are coming, we first of all able to find out whether this is hallucinated or this is not hallucinated, right? So otherwise we will never realize. Back in the previous example, if I just rely that the website URL that has been checked by the agent is all correct, and there may not be any information out there, I will first of all will not know whether it has hallucinated or not, right? But in case if you wanted to create that kind of a, I would say, guardrails, if you wanted to create that kind of I would I would say the kind of insurance wall around it, that yes, whether the responses are coming correctly or not. There are certain good practices that I personally follow. I can share some of the ways I challenge the outcome, right? So at times I ask those tricky questions to AI, saying, what are you not considering about this particular problem statement? So this kind of negative questions, when I start asking, it start generating the responses that potentially challenge the outcome that has been generated in the previous step by the AI, right? So asking those tricky questions, asking those negative questions. The other one of the favorite that I generally use is, uh, how would you see this particular solution failing, or how would you prevent this solution from failing? And this kind of actual responses generated from this gives me a much more assurance, because then there is a validation being done on the previous step, and then the output that is coming is more assured because it is counter checking and reviewing the work being done, right? Even at times, I ensure that I have created a reviewer agent. So my first step being done, and then the second step, I typically ask to create another agent that is a reviewer agent, in order to check the first step being done correctly or not. And this reviewer agent have itself certain questions. There are certain data points that I ask it to extract out of the first step, and that way I get to know that yes, the first step has been done appropriately, because I'm getting the result in a structured format with my second agent. So I would say again, this is individual practice, but some of those best practices can help us eliminate the hallucination problem.
Right. I've got a couple of more questions. I know I have 1 hour of for yours, but clearly this conversation is not going to get over in an hour or two. But then the way I do prompts personally is that I tell them what I want to achieve, and I tell Gemini or I tell Grok to create a prompt for me. Do you think that's a good exercise, or do you have a
Yeah,
hack for it?
yeah, yeah. No, I think that's a good exercise. That's a good exercise. If there are tricky ones, leave it to the best. Give the context, get the prompt written by the agent themselves, and you can review, modify as needed.
Perfect. Now, what is your personal stack? What are you running on? Are you using VPS? Are you using Mac Mini? You're using a cloud server? What What are you using as a pro user? Tell me.
I've got a Mac Pro. I
100%.
think that is sufficient for me. Mac Pro, it is sufficient for me. But for experimentation purpose, I've got Mac Air, and I've got a spare mobile, which is an Android phone. So for mobile app development, I use that Android phone, and otherwise for some funky experimentation, I use either Mac Air or maybe sometime EC2 instance.
Okay. And how many agents are you running? Now, Yatsio, who came in yesterday with his Animoca Minds, he is running 200 agents. How many agents are you running?
That's an interesting question. I haven't counted, but maybe I would say somewhere around 10 or 12, not to that number, not even closer to Yatsu. But it is also an integrated experience, right? So one agent, let's say my morning agent internally is fetching 6 data sources. I don't know how to call it, but yeah, I think typically for the day-to-day activity, for certain productivity gain and improving some of the tasks at hand, those are the type of agent that I've built who can take care of my social related um, uh, productivity gain, or maybe thinking in terms of how do I go and do my daily work in terms of CRM update, or maybe checking with my calendar and ensuring that I've been up to date on my calendars, as well as on my emails, as well as on my last day's meetings.
No, but AI agents can do a lot more, right? Because, for example, we have Kryptonite.ae. It can take care of running the entire, like a junior developer taking, making sure that the code is
Yep.
well kept. Then, it can take care of SEO. It can take care of, even re-verifying articles, or
Yep.
even generating articles and SEO. So all that an AI agent can do, because
Yep.
whenever I speak to Yat always tells me that it is all about orchestrating, right? Now, because he's a musician, like he comes from a musician family. I think that's the best way that he can put it across, right? How do you orchestrate? How do you make sure that these are in the right manner, or it is kept well? By the way, Animoca Minds is also giving out $1 million grant to build on AI agents. So if there's anybody out there who's building, send me a DM and I'll give you the details. Um, so coming back to my question here, uh, orchestrating is the first thing, and I'm glad that you mentioned the things to keep in mind while orchestrating it. I know that I've not asked you a lot of right questions. I know somewhere I'm guilty. So what do you think that I'm missing out asking you? Can you tell me that?
Now, I think it was a good conversation, Vaibhav, and the type of conversation, the questions that you have asked are some of the interesting one. I think if we just wanted to fill in the blank for the title of this podcast, when we are talking about how AI native organization would look like, I would say that we may be able to cover one or two more areas on the organization front, while we have covered a lot from an individual perspective. I think from an organization perspective, what are some of the things that potentially maybe organization could also start thinking and adopting in order to be, just not left behind, but start adopting this technology and think more AI native.
True. We were talking about prompting. We spoke about, excuse me, the hallucinations and how we need to go there. So one thing that I clearly understand is that AI and AI agents cannot be trusted 100%. Now
Not yet.
you are also working in the space of robotics and the layer of helping them work together. Uh, in Dubai, we have already started seeing uh, the robotic arm making, serving you a cup of coffee and stuff. Now, because this is
Yeah.
Dubai and I saw it at an event, the prices have not come down, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at China, I was talking to Amar and Sam the other day, where Sam from Growfitter is actually in China because he wanted to import some robotic arms. And the stories that he was saying is mind blowing, right? China, the cost of living is very low and very high, in the sense the cost of living is very low, but the standard of living is very high. Uh, the mindset of the people is somewhere more towards getting shit done. What do you think our fellow Indians are missing in terms of mindset?
Correct. Yeah, interesting one. And you're so true, man. You're so true. I've been also watching those videos and hearing the story in terms of the adoption that has gone ahead in China and many other places. In fact, the basic use case of serving a coffee is fascinating, but then that seems to be very basic at the moment to the type of innovations and things that we keep seeing into the video where can that be, can there be a parcel being delivered end to end by humanoid, right? And that take care of
Unfortunately, we
the single legs
unfortunately
and
we can never see that in India. We can never see that in
not
India.
yet,
I'm from
not yet,
Bangalore, right?
not
But tell me something. You and I both know that if a drone is coming to my house to deliver, most probably I will try and keep the drone also. And then if Amazon people come in, I say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I thought I bought 100 rupees package. I thought the drone is free here with it," kind of stuff, right? And
I
this is
don't think
a problem.
this kind of incident can happen anywhere. It cannot be just. Sorry, I think I
No, no,
lost
go
you
ahead.
for a second. But yeah, I was saying that this situation can happen anywhere in the world. I mean, you would have all types of persona, all types of personality everywhere in the world. So I don't want to say that if it can happen in
Are you
one case
dodging my
over the
question?
other. But yes, I think
Are you
yeah.
dodging my question?
So first of all, yes, I wanted to be ensured that this may not be an India problem. This could be a problem everywhere. So not just putting it back that it may only
No,
happen
no,
in
no.
one
Of
place
course,
or the other.
this is not just an India problem. This could
Exactly.
be a problem even in even in Indonesia. This problem could even be in
Yeah, exactly.
Vietnam.
It can happen anywhere. But I think these are the early days, right? So I would say that if this is a situation, we have been experiencing the highest amount of growth in terms of the adoption for digital technology, digital mobile apps, the education segment, the payment segment, and so on. But that's a separate conversation in terms of where we are from the adoption side in India versus the other part of the world. But particularly the point that you ask, Weber, I think I wanted to touch on that particular point of what can be thought differently, and even compounding it from a perspective of AI native organization, right? So while we have spoken at length from an individual perspective, just compounding it from an organization side, and then what fellow Indian could actually also think through it. So from from my particular personal experience, what I realize is that we have to try and do more experiment. We have to try and see what other approaches might work over the previous approach that we have already tried and tested, right? So fail fast kind of thing that we were discussing. Another interesting point is how can we respond faster. So when we are seeing that the market is changing with such a rapid speed, we are getting customer feedback 24 by 7. They are available on WhatsApp versus previously writing an email. How can we start responding fast to those kind of customer changing environment? Also, how can we compound our learning, right? So when we have developed this fast tools and products, how can we compound our learning? So if my first product has taken, let's say, a month's time, can I extract those component? Can I make them reusable? Can I create those agent guardrails more reusable, and then maybe compound it for each iteration that I'm doing? So maybe next solution might not take even 4 weeks, it might take 3 weeks, 2 weeks, and so on, right? So compounding the learning. And last but not the least is something what I feel is that maintaining that momentum. Once we have done this in, let's say, whatever X number of days, how can we maintain that momentum with, with the same three earlier points that I was talking about, continue to making more experiment, faster responses, and at the same time learning from our past, and then maintain that momentum in terms of getting that 10x speed or 50x speed. I think that is something that I started feeling really excited about it, and the type of exponential intellectual growth that it can give us.
So Sarah had a question, and then after that, I have a last question for you.
Sure, sure. Please go.
I'm going to change my question now. It's just going to be like, if you could only use one word to describe the future of business operations, what would it be?
Interesting one.
सबके लग गए.
So for business operation explicitly, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say distribution.
Absolutely.
That's very nice.
I would say distribution, and I don't know if you want why I'm
No,
thinking
bring
that
it,
way.
bring it on, bring it on.
I think GTM is going to be a bigger differentiation, right? Creating a product may not be a differentiation. Creating a software may not be a bigger moat. I think distribution is going to be a bigger differentiation. Imagine that if Salesforce, which have maybe spent more than 2 decades in terms of creating that CRM, but a new firm can maybe do it that within a few months, right? And they may not necessarily need all those hundreds of people doing the same thing. But then the distribution is going to be a key. How I'm going to be reaching to those many enterprises? How I'm going to be reaching to those small institutions where I can sell my product? And this is true for many other things, right? So I can create a replica of Zomato, I can create a replica of Swiggy, and so on. But how do I crack distribution is going to be a bigger differentiation. When creating solution become cheaper, when creating product become cheaper, I think distribution is a bigger moat.
Very,
True
very
that.
well said. My last question to you is that you have worked in a unicorn earlier, which is Polygon. Uh, what mindset have you gotten from there, like before joining Polygon, in Polygon, and now out of Polygon and on your own? How has your mindset evolved, and what do you think? Maybe someone like me, who's not worked in a setup like Polygon, what do you think the mindset that we should learn from maybe Sandeep or from the team like you, Arpit, and the other guys, the initial batch, right? What was so different back then that you all scaled so much, and now in this scenario, how are you using that, or whatever you learned over there was passe, and then here you have to really reinvent yourself? How do you look at it, and what do you think it is?
Yeah, a brilliant question, Weber. And I would say I'm really privileged in terms of working in the setup like Matic Network and then Polygon, working with amazing team under the leadership of Sandeep and many other co-founders back in days. Precisely to your point, I think in Polygon days, there were two key things that have been very well, I would say, inculcated into my thinking as well. One, nothing is out of scope, right? So in the startup world, you have to own things. You cannot say this is out of scope for me. So go for it, go for a kill, get thing done, right? So that is one thing. The second is all in attitude. I think for making really big things, there are certain sacrifices, there are certain things that we may have to leave behind, but go all in. Whether it is a call at 12 o'clock, whether it's a weekend, but then just go all in order to make something big. And that is what I've learned from Sandeep. I mean, I don't have words where this guy used to go back to back to back 20 calls in a day and still maintain a smile on a face and say that, okay, I've cracked this much. I think that has been a learning of going all in and not saying out of scope for me. I think that has been something that I particularly started enjoying, because back in corporate world, I think there were different principles, there were different values. But in the startup world, I think these are two very important, I would say, values that has make or break many startups.
So I 100% agree to what you have said, right? I've built my life around this, and I always tell my kids and my family that you have to have ownership, you have to go all in. मैं देखूंगा, मैं करूंगा. It doesn't happen like that. Like, you have to get shit done. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Do you think do you think agentic AI is actually maybe God's way of bringing in? Because what you said, Gen Z cannot manage this. At least the overall consensus is that, peace of mind, the European the work culture, Saturday Sunday, don't call me. It is like, harassment, and all of that. Do you think AI is the answer? Because you want more peace of mind. Sure, go ahead, enjoy. Your agentic AI will do stuff for you.
Man, first of all, looks like you're going to be rubbing up with many of your audience from either a certain region or with a certain age group, but that's part of your style. I love that. But yeah, I think coming back, precisely what I feel is that getting an assistant who can obey your order, right, is a way of
Ravi
doing
bhai
things
is only
differently.
playing safe. I can see your face, and I know you're playing safe.
So I think back to the Gen Z question, what I feel is that with the agents, now you are getting into a situation where somebody can follow your order, and he will not say whether it is a weekend or it's a particular hour of a time, right? So I think that kind of a luxury, that kind of a freedom is going to be there with you, where you would have your agent obeying your orders and getting things done the way you want it, the time you want it. So it's going to be different experience. It's going to be fun. It always comes with a trade-offs, and we all will see how that trade-off being managed effectively, or we end up into a situation which I was describing as cost of innovation in the early days.
I'm sure that we are going to see a lot more resignation emails saying that if you want me to work overtime, get yourself an AI agent, kind of stuff. And there's, I think, while leaving, I just want to ask you one thing: when is the AI agentic bubble going to burst? What do
I
you
mean,
think?
first of all, I am not a believer that it's a bubble. I would rather say this is the adoption cycle. We all feel that in the early days it's going to be a bubble, but I think it's an adoption cycle. We are getting hype by it, but I am very bullish. I am very bullish in terms of the things that have been started. It's not going to slow down. It rather is going to be more accelerating, and we have started seeing how within less than 2 years this has become part of our daily life. You open a Gmail,
100%.
you get that button. You open WhatsApp, you get that button, right? I think this has become integral part of our life, and the way we are able to see the challenges today in the real world, those problems which are unsolved, I think these are getting solved. So maybe not starting again. This is the last question, as you mentioned. So I would say that this doesn't sound to me as a bubble. Rather, this could be an opportunity for certain part of the pyramid, right? So if I think in terms of a pyramid, there are layers in within the pyramid of who are going to be at the top, who are adopting this technology for maximum advantage and compounding effect, versus the one who are still saying, no, I can write a better email, or maybe I can write a better code. So I think you would find those I would say leaders and laggards. And I think for people who do not want it to adopt it, maybe saying this is a bubble, but I personally feel super excited of what opportunity this can bring in terms of maybe solving those cancer problem, maybe solving those kind of plastic problems, or maybe helping in terms of getting better energy problems solved.
Very well said. Uh, there was a time when email addresses had come in, and I'm turning 40 this year. There was a time when I asked my friend, "What is your email address?" And he said, "It is number 582, block B18, Austin Town layout." And I'm like, ये कौन सा email है? मैंने तो हॉटमेल में खोला था, इससे किस में खोला है?
So
Right?
true, yeah.
But then
So true.
there will there will be people in this space and era who will actually get things done. You have the support of AI chat agents. I'm from Bangalore. And one of my biggest regrets in life was not learning how to code. But apparently, that is now one of the worst advices that you can get. It is apparently a much more worst advice than getting a face tattoo. That if somebody tells you to go and learn software, so if I can have AI agents using Grok and using Gemini and using my laptop, I think you all can also have it. Please dip your toes, like how Ravi said. You cannot read it and you can learn. You cannot you cannot watch videos and learn. You have to get your hands on. This is like learning how to ride a cycle. And the beauty is that the cycle will keep evolving uh, every day. So thank you everyone for your time, for watching this. Ravi, thank you so much. We clearly need to have you back again and discuss in more depth in terms of what we are doing. And maybe I'll try and get in people from Annie Muka Minds also. um, we were supposed to have Ben as a speaker, but I think Ben is busy celebrating Eid, and well, we are here, uh, like how Ravi said, with the attitude of with the ownership and getting things done. It doesn't matter if it is Eid or if it is Diwali. If something needs to be done, we need to get it done. Thank you so much, and go and figure out how to um, start your agent. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Vaibhav bhai. Maza